welcome to Trusty Chords, the podcast which aims to celebrate music and those that create it. When it comes to Melbourne indie alternative punk bands, I would say that I'm in a pretty good position to talk about Dental Plan. First formed in 2018 by guitarist and vocalist Niam Hegarty, bassist and occasional vocalist Jo Gardiner, and drummer Stu Young, the band kicked off writing, recording and gigging pretty quickly, establishing a respectable fanbase around the city as they did so. Following their self-titled 2018 EP, the group released a single in 2019 before emerging from the depths of COVID in 2021 with Hole in Me, a track which saw Rolling Stone Australia label them as a band to watch. This all naturally led into the recording of the debut album for the group, who had by that point undergone some changes in the lineup, though Niam and Jo remained consistent. After being joined by drummer Paul Dwyer, they also welcomed a new guitarist just last year by way of, well, me. Yes, I am using my platform to shine a light upon my own bandmates this week. Of course, while accusations of nepotism and favouritism are probably being thrown about the world over, it's worth pointing out that I was actually a big fan of Dental Plan before I even knew the folks in the band. However, the main reason I'm talking about Dental Plan is because just last week, they released their debut album, Raw Nerve. Speaking as someone who joined the band around the time the majority of the recording was completed, I'm therefore in a position to speak objectively and tell you it's actually a really good album. If you like punk, indie and alternative rock with influences of bands like Nirvana, The Wipers and Pavement, well, you're in for a good time. As you might have guessed, Jo and Niam are my guests for the podcast this week. We actually recorded this episode at Jo's house just after we'd all come together to listen to the test pressing of our new record. I'd be remiss not to say you should grab a copy, of course, but this isn't the Dental Plan sponsorship show. I will point out there's a few spotty moments in the audio, namely owing to the rather relaxed nature of our recording. But if you can deal with the sounds of some cars going past the window and a few bumps of the mic, I think you might learn something. Anyway, check out Dental Plan's debut album Raw Nerve, and once you're done giving that a spin, have a listen to our chat, and I'll see you at the end of the episode for some general housekeeping. Niam Hegarty and Jo Gardiner, thank you for joining the Trusty Chords podcast.
Hello! Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us. Appreciate it.
So there is a good chance that most folks won't necessarily recognise your names, by which I mean probably no one. But can you give me a quick few words on who you both are and why we're talking today?
Wow, my name's Niam. I sing and play guitar in Dental Plan. I guess we're an indie punk band out of Melbourne. And I've been in a bunch of bands over the years and I've been doing this for probably too long, I guess, and I'm too dumb to quit. So here we are, about to release an album.
So I will admit this is a very interesting podcast because I'm talking to you two as members of Dental Plan, but since early last year, I've also been a member of Dental Plan. So this is my first time I've spoken to folks for the podcast who I not only know well, but also play music with. So let's get down to the questions about me. Where I usually start with questions here is by asking you both about musical histories. So Niam, I'll start with you since you're to my direct right. Is there a specific memory that you have of when music first resonated with you?
Yeah, well, I used to listen to Michael Jackson and a lot of kind of R&B shit when I was a kid. Also, what's that band, Twisted Sister?
Twisted Sister, yeah, with Dee Snider.
We're Not Gonna Take It. I think that was the very first track that I got really into.
That explains your haircut.
Yeah. Yeah, I was always obsessed with music from a young age. I think it's because my parents played a lot of music around the house and things like that. In terms of my own personal musical journey, it was I guess I came of age in kind of the late 90s. So there was a tape trading kind of situation going on back then. So my friend, who was apparently a bad influence on me, had an older brother who would dub all the tapes that were out popular at the time. So it was kind of Nirvana, Guns N' Roses, all the grunge stuff. So when I was about 11 years old, I got a tape. I think it was Guns N' Roses' Use Your Illusion 1 and 2 on one tape, and then there was Nirvana, Nevermind and Unplugged on the other tape. And I was super into the Gunner stuff for a little while. And my parents were really awesome because they bought me a home stereo system. So I had a full setup when I was 11 years old. And I used to crank out the Gunner stuff. But then when I heard Nirvana Nevermind, it definitely changed me. And I was probably about 11 years old at that point. So after that, I got increasingly into grunge and punk music, and explored stuff like Sonic Youth, Dinosaur Jr. When I was a little bit older, I got the Nirvana biography and read through all the bands that they talked about, which Black Flag and Bikini Kill, and that, I guess, listening to that album and kind of being blown away by that album at such a young age, it kind of opened my world up, like massively. So yeah, no, it was a huge turning point, and like I just kind of feel like I wouldn't be the same if that hadn't happened. Like I vividly remember like sitting there being like, what the fuck is this? Like I don't really understand it, but this is amazing. Same thing with Siamese Dream to a lesser extent, I guess, by Smashing Pumpkins.
Well, I should say I'm definitely glad that you actually decided to listen to the Nirvana side, because otherwise your dental plan might have you in the Axl Rose black shorts running around on stage.
Well, it was funny because they used to have a rivalry, like back in the day. It was like Gunners versus Nirvana. So yeah, it was kind of like I was right in there,
Well, yeah, because Nirvana like basically broke down the whole hair metal thing, didn't they?
Yeah.
Guns N' Roses was sort of involved.
But Gunners are still big. I mean, I was a little bit late to the party. Like this is probably 95, 96. No, it's probably 95 when I was just getting into all this stuff. But probably, showing my age a bit. But no, it was very eye opening and very important for me, and something that I've kind of like never got over. I've just always wanted to be in a band, and yeah.
And then, Jo, what about yourself? Do you have a specific memory of when music first resonated with you?
Before I found what I like to call good music, I was younger and listening to a lot of all of the pop stuff that was happening at the time, like Take That and all of the boy bands and everything. And then
There's nothing wrong with the boy bands. I mean, they make popular music because it's it's popular.
It is popular, but it doesn't have the same kind of edge. Yes, edge is good, and heart that the music I like to listen to now does. And it was when I heard Smashing Pumpkins' Disarm that it opened up the whole new world for me of different kinds of alternative music. And after I heard Disarm, I started looking into all of the music that was coming out around then, and again got into Nirvana and the Breeders and Pixies and everything like that. And I kept on that path until now.
Right. Again, I mean, I'm glad, like Niam decided to go with Nirvana, I'm glad you didn't stick with Take That. Otherwise, Dental Plan would be very different.
We would have a lot more choreography.
doing covers of Back for Good or something in the middle
I
of it.
feel like the second album that like really got to me was Siamese Dream, though. Mm-hmm. Like I remember like sitting in my room when I was like 13 and just like listening, like getting that CD and literally listening to it on repeat, like over and over and over, and just being like, oh wow, this is amazing.
I had the single of Disarm and someone stole it, so I went and got another one, and then it magically reappeared in my locker, so I had 2 copies of Disarm on single.
I saw Billy Corgan in the airport about 10 or 12 years ago. And,
is the story going anywhere, or are you just even to say that?
And he was wearing this like huge bucket hat and shouting at his manager on the phone. And then I kind of like went over and plugged in my computer like right beside where he was sitting. So like me and him were kind of sitting down together. I was kind of like, I need to like troll him at some point. Like, it's a shame. I feel like after Melancholy, they're sort of...
Part of me is basically imagining you just sort of like loudly like saying, oh, I wish I had someone to listen to my demos. Something like that. You there, you look like you're into music.
It was so weird, yeah. But yeah, bucket hat, shouting on the phone, I mean, the rumours are true, I guess.
So I guess for both of you then, how exactly did you go from listening to music to starting to play music? Jo, you can go first with this one because Niam went first last time.
Basically what happened was I was in my early 20s and my housemate basically said, hey, I've got a bass. It doesn't have any strings. Do you want it? And I was like, yes, I do. And so I got it strung, and then I started learning tabs off the internet. And then a friend of mine was like, you play bass? I'm like, you think I play bass? And then we started a band. And that's pretty much how it happened.
And what was that band called?
That band at that time was called She'll Be Apples.
So from there, like, what sort of, I guess, what was the bass that actually sort of resonated with you? And I say resonate because bass has some low frequencies to it that tend to resonate.
Well, I did say I listened to a lot of Breeders. There was also the Sonic Youth side of things. I was also into Scream Feeder, and all of them had awesome, badass female bass players at front.
I was gonna say, there was something in common with all those bands.
Very much so. And yeah, I was like, they can do it, I can do it. So I continued to learn how to play, and She'll Be Apples turned into Applecross, and then we turned into Deadbeat Club after that. And I continued to play bass and also started playing a little bit of guitar at that time. And yeah, and I've just kept playing. Well, I did have a break for a bit there, but yeah.
And Niam, what about yourself?
Oh, it's a long story. Well, yeah, so when we were in high school, we started Ritalin, which ended up becoming a sort of, I guess, a popular band in Dunedin, New Zealand, which is where I'm from. Stu plays drums on the last track on the record, Hole in Me. He was the drummer in that band, so when we were about 15, we started that. And originally it was some other guys, and I tried to insert myself as a singer, even though they were kind of like, they were kind of already established, But so we entered, we sort of were a high school band, and we done a bunch of stuff. But I think Stu and I were motivated to take it further. So when we left high school, we pretty much done the band full time, toured a lot, put out a couple of records, and yeah, we had I guess underground success in New Zealand, Yeah, so I was in Ritalin, and Stu and I, who Jo and I started dental playing with, kind of had this band, and we just toured a lot. Like we were just like, we're going to be the Black Flag of New Zealand kind of thing, which is fucking stupid.
It's ambitious.
because it's like in the States, obviously you can tour everywhere, but like New Zealand, it's like, hey, let's go and do like every shitty town we can find. Which is like probably only like, I don't know, not that many shitty towns, but maybe you could do 14 shows on a tour compared to the States, which is like, so many shows. But we've done that for quite a few years, and, we had some success. And then I just kind of kept going from there. I've just been in different bands over the years, and always, I guess, kind of wanted to do something that was outside of just my hometown, wherever I've been located,
I should also say that the entire time you were saying that about the Black Flag thing, I was thinking about how the Black Flag, what the biography was, get in the van, but you guys just get in the Datsun or something like that.
No, I'm pretty sure I was reading Get in the Van around that time when I was in my early 20s, which is then Ritalin was at their height. But no, it's just that mentality of just like, if we keep going, good things will come to us. And obviously we had the good, the bad, and the ugly along the way, But yeah, that was really fun. Like some people have their overseas experience or their OE, and they go off and do shit, and we just had music to just sort of take us around where we could go to various countries or various things, through whether it was Ritalin, Outsiders, which is a band I had in Wellington, or Laura Palmer. We done a lot of travelling and had a lot of good times in our young years. So yeah, I guess dental plan's just like the sort of latest part of that, I guess, of that latest part of that kind of journey, I guess, I
mean, so what were some of the illustrious highs that you had? Because you and I have obviously spoken before about, Ritalin playing The Big Day Out, for example, and being on a lineup that has Queens of the Stone Age, which...
Yeah, well, I think, so one of the cool things is the first recording I ever done was with Dave from the 3Ds, who was the vocalist of, kind of like the Flying Nun band, the 3Ds, which Stu and I really, really loved. And he worked for Stu's dad, so he recorded me and Stu and the other guys when we were about 14, and we didn't know what the fuck we were doing. And then a few years later, he helped us to get on The Big Day Out when we had a record out. So yeah, like that record done well for an underground record, and that was awesome. And then like, going overseas for the first time, and other bands like Outsiders was great, and playing festivals and having shows that had people at them and records that people cared about, and yeah, it was just all a journey, but obviously, yeah, I don't know, I just I don't know if there's like particular highs or not, but you know, I think you've got to just keep finding highs. You know what I mean? Like,
whenever I think about your music, for example, I think how you've had Ritalin, Outsiders, and Laura Palmer, for example. Which is your favourite?
It's really hard to say.
You're amongst friends, feel free.
I think in terms of the camaraderie, probably Outsiders, because it was like after Ritalin broke out, Stu and I joined with these two other guys who were in another band who we used to tour with. And we kind of like joined together to make this sort of other thing. And we done a lot of stuff, like went to the States. It was the first time I ever played the Fest, first time I ever toured the States. First time I toured Europe and the UK, it was with Outsiders. And we done one ridiculous tour in the US where I think it was almost 50 shows. It was like just the most from the bottom of the South to LA, and just so dumb, you know. It's like I would never do that now.
But just
like,
for every time that you tell me one of these crazy tour stories, I just assume it was on that, you know.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, that was probably the peak, I guess, of giving it everything and just seeing how far we could take it, you know.
So how then do you go from playing in bands like, for example, Laura Palmer was the band you had before Dental Plan, and Jo, I've forgotten the name of the band you would have had before Dental Plan, but I don't think you gave it to me necessarily chronologically, did you? You did?
Deadbeat Club.
Deadbeat Club. Okay.
Yeah.
So how did you go from being in a band like Deadbeat Club to then getting in a band like Dental Plan, and Niam, same question, Laura Palmer to Dental Plan? This is a very long-winded way that was supposed to be a nice segue of me saying, how the hell did Dental Plan form?
I don't know, like when Laura Palmer broke up, like it was kind of one of those things where, you know, my entire life I'd been like, I'm gonna do music and that's gonna be what I do for my like livelihood or my passion or whatever, to like the extreme of like not giving up on it and just being like, oh, I've got to do this tour, I've got to do this thing, just like a crazy obsession almost, you know. And when Laura Palmer ended, I was kind of like, hey, look, I'm coming up on like my mid-30s, maybe I shouldn't be trying to like sleep in vans 24/7 and like doing
a little bit of stability,
doing ridiculous tours all the time. And so then I was in Melbourne, and Laura Palmer was from Melbourne as well, but I guess I was in a period of like, what the fuck am I doing with my life kind of thing. And then Jo moved in, and I think she was probably in a period of what the fuck am I doing with my life kind of thing.
Yes.
And so like the first song we wrote, Stu also, who had played in Laura Palmer on and off and had played in Outsiders and played at Ritalin, ended up living at our house for a couple of months because he didn't have anywhere else to go. Mm-hmm. So the three of us got together and started watching music docos.
Yeah.
Like there was a Courtney Love behind the music. There was like the grunge stuff, like just all the shit. And we were just like, man, like we should like, I think over like a couple of months, it was a summer. It was like one summer we were like, maybe we should like start a band or something, like, you know. And it was just sort of like this harebrained idea that we didn't even really think about. But
I should also say that, judging by the story you're telling me, I think this band should have been called Deadbeat Club.
But yeah, we all three of us were kind of in a weird place, and we were just like, let's just start a band, like, and I remember that song Weighed Down that was one of the first songs we wrote, and is actually on this record. We re-recorded it for this record. That song was kind of about us coming home drunk and just kind of not knowing where the fuck we are. Like, I can't even, like, I remember one night coming home and just, we lived in a cul-de-sac and I, like, literally could not find my house. And so I was like, that was kind of where that came from. And that was, so that song's still going strong to this day. I mean, we started the band in 2018 and Way Down's just about to come out on a brand new record. So
it is.
Here you go, you know, you got the... So yeah, I guess a meeting of the minds, a meeting of the people who want to listen to 90s rock and hang out and drink beers, I think, yeah.
Also, the name came when we were sitting at the old bar one night. It was me and Niam and Stu, and we were just sat at the table and we were all discussing our different teeth issues. And I was like, that's it, we're called Dental Plan.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, all right.
Also, the last tour that Laura Palmer ever got offered was to do the States, and we were gonna do a co-headlining show with Jeff Rosenstock at the Fest, and I couldn't go because I had to go to Thailand to get all my teeth fixed because I had like a $10,000 dental bill. So I think this was maybe like a year or two before this happened, so that was still hanging over, you know. So yeah, the dental stuff was a big issue, you know.
So it was more of a teeth-related name than a Simpsons joke.
Oh, it was
or
definitely,
is it a nice compliment?
It was definitely the Simpsons joke, but it was also like, I remember us sitting around and being like, man, we're all fucked and all our teeth are like fucking fucked up. Mm-hmm. I don't think my teeth's probably better now, but how about you?
Yeah.
So I should also point out the fact that Paul, our drummer, is off to the side. Paul, how are your teeth?
I'm missing a molar and I've got a crack in another molar that gives a bit of pain with cold drinks and that kind of thing.
Well, I'm starting to feel like I'm the odd one out here, considering I had braces and everything.
I have braces too. They did nothing.
Well, you're still young, mate. It's gonna come and kick you in the ass at some point.
No, because obviously that is one thing about the band, that a lot of people will actually latch on to the name if they've seen The Simpsons, or as I've discussed, the students that I lecture said that The Simpsons are a bit before their time, which infuriates me because it's still on TV. They're still making new episodes. But, I mean, I should say, is that something that has actually become a little bit of a frustration? Because obviously people will latch on to that. I mean, if you were to start the band today, would you pick a different name that won't necessarily have people yelling out at crowds, Lisa needs braces?
That's engagement. It's good.
Exactly.
I like it when people yell out stuff.
And it was only really a problem when we first started, I think. Like, it sort of died down in recent times, I think.
I liked it then too.
Yeah. Occasionally you'll get it at least.
Talking,
I feel like you'll get it less now than when we first started.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, especially if you have more of my students coming to the
Exactly.
show, they're going to know what the hell's going on.
The younger the crowds get, the less they know.
But it's also like, the music we play is probably a bit before. If people don't know who the fuck the Simpsons are they going to know what kind of thing we're trying to do with our music? So it's all together, man. It's all just 90s fucking worship. Like, should probably just like go back 25 years and hang out in the 90s again.
That would just rename the band TikTok and if you get more younger crowds or something. So we obviously touched on before, you had like Way Down with the first songs. So that one originally came out in a little like 3-song EP/single from 2018. And then in 2019, there's a couple of songs which were done with Alicia from Bully, right?
Yeah, so we recorded them out in Sunbury with Josh Richards. And we got them mixed by Alicia from Bully, who's I guess a sub-pop indie rocker, writes really cool songs.
So obviously with the whole being a fan of Nirvana and then getting someone who was on Sub Pop or is on Sub Pop to sort of be involved in some way, that must also add a little bit of legitimacy or feel a little bit good at least, right?
Yeah, no, it felt good. I think that it was just because we really liked the music she was putting out at that point, and we found out that she worked for Steve Albini, and she was like kind of a I guess a protege to Steve Albini. And so she learned her recording chops in his studio, and I found out that she recorded a lot of her own stuff. Like with her band, she would always record what she was doing and also other bands. So I think I just reached out to her through her manager and was just like, hey, like this is our band, like check it out. If you're into it, we'd be really interested in you, like maybe doing some mixing or something. And she said that she really liked it. So she mixed a couple of tracks for us and she added her own flavour to it, and I think it came out really well. I don't think we play any of those two songs anymore.
We don't play them anymore.
You've never taught them to me, so I don't know.
But we did play them for a while. But yeah, I mean, it was really cool because it was like to have feedback from someone like that who's obviously, you know, like someone you respect, and, you know, it was cool. Like, it was just like a little cool moment, you know.
And then the following year, I think, was when you guys had Hole in Me really start being recorded. Now, that was a song which Rolling Stone Australia called A Song You Need to Know. That was me who said that, but it was before I joined the band.
Hey, this is when you didn't know us. There was no...
Well, I'm pretty sure I knew you at that point.
You knew me a little bit, I think. Yeah.
I hadn't been sucked into the world of Niam as yet.
Into the world of... Yeah.
But I guess that's my little segue of sort of saying, so that song is closing out the new album. So how did everything with the album first begin? When did the album actually start being recorded? Because I'm trying to remember, was Paul in the band before, like, when things started, or?
No, so when we started recording the album, Paul was in the band, yeah.
Because I'm pretty sure I first saw the band in 2021, and then I joined a year and a half later. Yeah. But at that point, I think Paul was still fresh.
I think when you joined, we were just kind of like finishing up some of the album.
Yeah, because I'm only on it very briefly in a backing vocals.
Yeah, so you're in backing vocals on Landslide, right?
Landslide.
Yeah. So the album Raw Nerve, I guess we started recording a couple of years ago. Recorded it with our friend Max up in Coburg.
At Cellar Sessions Studios.
Yep, and he's a good dude, and he's a soundy at Last Chance. And yeah, it was super fun. And so yeah, we're pretty stoked that it's finally coming out.
So I obviously joined the band in 2023, and obviously the record was getting close to completion by that point. So the album came out last week, but with me being smart enough to not let slip, we're actually recording ahead of time. Tell me about the album, guys. You know, what can I, the enterprising listener who has never once listened to Dental Plan before, what can I expect from this record?
I guess it's a mix of punk rock, alt rock, and grunge.
With some indie
chucked in. Yeah. Just kind of all our influences. I think the songs are pretty decent. I think we kind of set out and achieved what we wanted to, as far as I can tell after giving it a quick listen, just saying, you know. What do you reckon, Jo?
I reckon it sounds good.
Yeah.
I'm pretty happy with how it has come out in general.
I guess we should say that Scotty was in the band for a while, and he also contributed a lot of guitar tracks. A lot of really cool discordant kind of guitar tracks.
Guitar parts have been very hard to learn in some places, as I've discovered. Looking at the raw nerve, the raw stems of it all, and actually being like, how the hell did he do this?
Yeah,
it sounds pretty fun.
It's got a really good knack for kind of like noisy guitar, which I guess we try and replicate as well. But yeah, no, I think it's bro. I think it's a pretty sick fucking record, eh?
Yes, listening to it, I guess for explanation, the reason we're actually really catching up tonight is because we listened to the test pressing of the record, and it sounds like it's a very good record. I would listen to it, and I feel like I can be somewhat objective considering all the songs are actually written before I joined the band. So I've sort of come into the band and heard these songs like a lot of people would have, and you know, hearing them, I feel like it's a good record. I feel like you guys have done well. And, I mean, partially me with a small bit of backing vocals, but that's not going to be on the marquee of the record.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, I mean, we've been a band since 2018, and we've been doing this for a long time individually, so you'd like to think that we could come up with something half decent. And I think we've done that, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it's coming out on red vinyl, and, I'm just really excited that we can finally, like, kind of move on to the next chapter of the band and maybe do some touring and go around Australia and write some new music, because we've kind of been consumed by this project for quite a while, you know. I think this came out well, but yeah, it's a lot of work, time and money to put out a record. I think in 2024, you know, a lot of people focus on singles and things like that, and to actually see something through like a full length record is kind of, it just seems like it's not really. It's different than it was maybe 10 or 20 years ago, you know.
But of course, releasing a record on vinyl, which I should say is limited edition red vinyl, limited to 100 copies. And where can people buy a copy of the album if they want to buy it? What?
Well, it's on our Bandcamp, but we're also going to chuck it around some local record stores. So just any local record store in your town, just hit them up, and yeah, hopefully we'll have it in there.
Especially if your town is Melbourne.
Especially if your town's Melbourne, yeah.
Oh, I tell you, after hearing that, I'd be crazy not to buy one, frankly. But I guess as a bit of a final question about the album, you know, what does the album Raw Nerve say about who Dental Plan are in 2024?
I don't know, I think it's like a lot of anger, frustration, energy let out that was needed to be let out at the time, and yeah, I mean, music to me, and this record in particular, is something that is very, I guess,
Cathartic?
Cathartic, yeah. It's very cathartic. So it's like, I feel like when we practice every week, you know, I think it gives us a sort of reason to get together and a reason to kind of have something to work towards, you know? And it's been great working towards this record, and it's been great getting out some shit that you probably couldn't get out in your normal life, you know. And yeah, I mean, Joe's known me for a few years, and I've had some pretty fucking fucked up times over those years, and
yes, indeed.
I think that the lyrics and the music probably reflects some of that, you know.
I would say so.
You know, so I don't think it's like a happy-go-lucky album, like, but it's one of those things where you can write a happy song and then you can read lyrics and they can be super fucked up, but like...
I'm really looking forward to actually reading the lyrics so I can know what the hell you're singing.
I like that kind of juxtaposition. No, I like the kind of dichotomy where it's like, you know, you've got music that can sound sort of upbeat, but it's actually really dark, you know? Like, yeah, and I think that's what we do. Like, is make music that rocks and also has got some weird, scary undertones.
Yeah. I mean, I'm usually frightened listening to Holy Me. I mean, it's quite a fucking brutal song, isn't it?
It's got a dark and brutal video to go with it.
It certainly does. And who was that video filmed by? Well,
A friend Scott,
That's it.
he filmed it and it's really great. Yeah, so I'm glad that we got the sort of updated version on the record. But yeah.
all right. Well, after the dazzling bit of conversation we just had there, I feel we should get down to the portion of the podcast from which its namesake is derived. So, Trusty Chords is built around the average chord. So, folks who know theory know the standard chord is built around the first, third, and fifth notes of a scale. So, we extrapolate that a bit here. And I'm going to ask you about one artist that's impacted you, 3 albums that have influenced you, and 5 songs you can always turn to. Now, these 3 albums don't need to be by the same artist, and likewise with the songs, don't need to be by the same artist or from the same albums. So, first question for you, let's go with you, Joe. Who is the one artist that has inspired you the most, whether it be personally or creatively?
I have to say Kim Deal. She is just the epitome of awesome. She's in all of the best bands. And yeah, she puts her stamp on everything she's in. And yeah, there's not a lot that you hear from her that is not good. Like, yeah, everyone has patchy spots, but most of it's really good. So yeah, Kim Deal by far.
Is there a particular sort of like, I guess, band that she works with that you prefer the most? Like, are you a big Pixies fan or a...
Pixies and Breeders.
Yeah.
Like I've always said Kim Deal or no deal when it comes to the Pixies. I haven't seen the Pixies without her in it.
I've only seen the Pixies without her in it, and I was not impressed. So
there we go.
There we go.
But yeah, I love Kim Deal and everything she does, pretty much.
Let's go sort of back and forth, I guess. So, and Niam, what about yourself? Who's the one artist that's inspired you the most, personally or creatively?
Yeah, I guess just going back to the beginning, the Nirvana thing, you know. I wouldn't have been playing music without them and wouldn't have got into music without them. So yeah, just go with that. There's not really much more to say than what's been said, but I'd probably go with Live and Loud as the go-to Nirvana late 93 New Euro Tour live concert. I reckon that's fucking sick. It's got Pat Smear rocking out. You got Chris Novoselic going hard. Kurt Cobain at his best. I mean, it's an insane show. And
I mean, it's pretty representative of who they were.
yeah, I think it's a lot more representative of who they were than like Teen Spirit or Unplugged or something. Just more that chaotic kind of punk rock energy, you know, so...
It's actually a real shame that they weren't able to, you know, because you said it's what, late 93? That would have
Yeah,
been.
yeah.
So you sort of think how it all sort of ended within like 6-7 months after that.
I think it came out in like New Year's 93 or something.
Yeah. But you just sort of think the fact that it's like, well, it was looking so good here, where could they actually go on from there if they're playing with that energy and stuff? Yeah,
well, I used to have a VHS of the concert where I couldn't even see shit because it was like a 10th generation copy. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with the modern technology, you know, so we can see these concerts that were before our time. But yeah, probably go with that.
How many times do you reckon you've watched Live and Loud?
Fuck, like, how many times do you reckon I've watched it? Like,
Well, at least 10 or so when I was there.
I reckon I'm pushing up to 100 probably.
Yes.
Like, it's like anytime you need a boost, and just watch School. Like, if you can go on YouTube, watch the version of School from that. It is like just so fucking epic. Like, I don't know.
I mean, that's a great song to begin with. Let alone adding in that sort of energy. By the time they'd really refined that song as well.
Yeah, it's like totally refined and awesome, and yeah, like punk rock when punk rock was big and cool. You know, those were the days.
I mean, thankfully, there's bands like Dental Plan keeping it alive. So the next question I have is, what are 3 albums that have impacted you the most? This can be albums you're always throwing on, or something that could be integral to your music evolution. And we'll go with you, Jo, to keep it back and forth.
Well, my number 1 album is My Bloody Valentine Loveless.
Didn't you have like 3 or 4 copies of that on vinyl?
Yes, I do.
Point?
I do still have at least 4 copies of Loveless. In its different iterations and reissues and stuff.
Because there's also some different mixes of it as well, aren't there? I mean, because I think I've got the CD, which is like the original mix, and there's a marked difference between the two.
Yes, exactly. But as an album, as a whole album, it is stunning and just noisy goodness, and I adore it.
I was going to say, because that's one thing I do know about you, is that you're someone who loves a lot of noise.
I quite like
and
noise.
I definitely feel like that would be an album that is right up your alley in that sense. It's such a rewarding listen as well, that album.
Yeah. I rediscovered it. I don't know what year it was, but I was on a plane and I was going to Sydney, and I just chucked it on in my headphones, and it was transcendent. And the entire ride to Sydney, I was just blown away. And yeah, it went by in a second.
And what about your second album then?
Second album is Whole Live Through This. That album has got me through a lot, and it's just angry and powerful and wonderful, and Courtney has such a great scream and such a good way of giving her all for the whole album, pretty much. It's fantastic.
It is such a... I mean, I feel like it's the peak of Whole.
Mm-hmm.
It's such a perfect album, and especially like with the sort of amount of righteous anger that's in there as well. It feels so representative of that time, even if you sort of discount everything it's going around her life as well. It's just... Pretty
on the Inside was also very, very awesome and super raw and, just guttural. But yeah, Live Through This just has so many catchy, awesome songs on it that you just can't go past.
Yeah. And what's the third album?
Tucker B's Chubby.
Right. Why this one?
Not actually sure. It is one that I can always go to. It's always on a CD in my car, and I listen to it quite a lot. The lyrics are quirky and weird, and the Tucker Bees live was something to behold. I don't think we'll ever get to see it again, but hopefully. But yeah, Tucker Bees are a wonderful band that I loved, and this album is pretty much quintessential them, and yeah, that's it.
Fair enough. And Niam, what about you? What are your 3 albums?
First one, The Wipers, Is This Real? From 1980. I feel like it sounds like it could have been recorded last week, you know? I think that's always a sign of a great album.
That timeless quality to it.
Yeah, it's just got that timeless quality, and like even the recording, it's like, how does that sound like so good for a 1980s record, you know, or a 1980 record? So yeah, just powerful, depressing, just kind of an amazing punk rock record. I think one of the best punk rock records of all time. So yeah.
And what about the second album then?
Yeah, so I've gone for the more modern stuff for the next couple of ones. Fontaine's DC, Skinty Fear, which is a band from originated in Dublin. The album came out, I think, a couple of years ago. There's just something, I've been listening to it recently, and there's just something so powerful about the lyrics and the music and the kind of tone of it. It's like post-punk. It's post-punk, but it's like not confined to a genre. Like I think the guy who writes the songs in that band is like kind of like a bit of a genius, you know? And just kind of delving into them and that record more, into the the music and the lyrics, it's pretty powerful stuff, you know.
Well, I'm very glad you said that album because that's easily one of my favourite albums of the last few years. It's such a brilliant record because I think we had this discussion a few weeks ago. I listened to their first album. I was impressed. I hadn't listened to I still have not listened to their second one. I've been wanting to, but I feel like the third one was so good. I'm like, I want to make sure I'm in the right headspace for it. But Skinny Fee is such a brilliant record. I
think anyone who likes 80s alt rock or even modern alt rock would really dig that album, you know. It's extremely well done. And I think that's one of the bands that are kind of going forward that I kind of have faith in, you know, that they're going to keep producing good music. So
they are definitely sort of fighting the good fight.
Hopefully they keep it up. And the fact that they're so popular kind of makes me like feel weird as well, because I'm like, oh, like they're so good, but people love them. It gives me hope for like the young kids and things like that, you know what I mean? Like
100%. And what would be album number 3 for you?
Another semi-recent one, Drug Church Cheer, from 2018. It's like a good melodic hardcore record. You know, again, lyricism just on point and some big riffs, some big ideas, and fucking good time.
It is an amazing record as well.
Yeah.
Again, another one brilliant. That was 2018, was that?
Yeah, it's 2018, I think. Yeah.
Exceptional record. And I mean, yourself, me, and Paul went and saw Drug Church when they were here.
That was a good night.
It was an amazing night. It was such a great show.
I remember seeing you stage diving, and like I think it was one of the last songs of the night, and just like singing one of the fucking tracks, and like seeing you flying through the air. I was like, this is fucking hilarious.
I think I was flying through the air singing. What was the line? It's like hard to choose a career when you're bad at everything. A pretty fitting line. No, there's also some very good choices as well, which leads me into the final bit, which is 5 songs you can always turn to, whether it be for comfort, for excitement, anything at all, your 5 trusty songs. So, Jo, I'm going to go with you again for this one. What would be your 5 songs?
First one's Custard Apartment.
That's an exceptional song as well. It's such a fun riff, and Dave McCormack is just he's having a great time in that song.
He definitely is. It's just... This is the song, when I've got a shitty song stuck in my head and I'm like, oh, I need this out, then I just think of the apartment riff, and it's like, it's a happy song all the time.
Such a fun riff as well.
Yeah.
Like, just like, if it's a fun riff to play, like, I don't think I've played that riff in like 10 years, but I think I could remember it perfectly right now. And
Please do.
Yeah, it's exceptional. What about song number 2?
Modest Mouse, Trailer Trash.
Which album is that one from?
That's from Lonesome Crowded West.
Right.
It's one of the slower Modest Mouse songs, but the lyrics are just gorgeous, and it's one of the first songs I learnt to play on bass because I loved it so much. And it's just lovely. I like that song a lot.
See, I've undergone a real Modest Mouse conversion over the last 5-10 years, because for the longest time I only knew things like Float On and stuff like that, which is, you know, all the ones that all the popular kids would know, so to speak. But I listened to that album that Sun Kill Moon did. It covered all the Modest Mouse songs, and it really highlighted the lyricism. And that's what really got me into them. It's such an exceptional lyricist.
Yes, he is. There's so many albums worth of great lyrics. Lonesome Crowded West has just pretty much poetry the whole way through. And some of it's noisy poetry, but some of it's quiet and lovely. And Trailer Trash is along those lines.
Yeah. And for the next song?
I'm going to go with Pavement, Grounded.
I was going to choose this one.
Hey, we do have stuff in common.
Well, you've got time to think of another one.
Not sure why this one's a favourite. It's just the start of the song just gets me every time. It's just a slow burn, but it's so good.
It's a song that can always keep you grounded, right?
So very, yes.
Yeah, that was a terrible segue. But no, I mean, it's pretty hard to find a Pavement song that isn't good, but that's a really good example of a song that sort of stands out above the rest, isn't it?
Yes, it was very difficult to choose a Pavement song. But yeah, it was either this or Harness Your Hopes. No? Rattled by the Brush.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, Harness Your Hopes is a great song as well.
It is.
But I mean, yeah, honestly, I'm glad that no one asks me these questions because I'd have a lot of trouble.
Yeah,
And
I had a lot of trouble.
That's why I just like, making it hard for people. And that's why I say, what's your fourth song?
I'm still trying to figure this out. It's Of Love. Any song they've released.
Okay. Is there a specific favourite at all? If you gun to your head, had to pick one.
Let's say Land of Steve-O.
Actually, I'm pretty sure that is a song that the first time I heard was actually I was in the car with you and Dougie.
This is not surprising.
It's a great song.
Yes, Of Love are a band that I adore. They've put out 3 amazing albums. I'm not sure if they are even slightly famous in America. They've done some KXPs and stuff, so I think that there is a couple of people that like them. But I would give anything for them to tour here.
Yeah, that was a band that since I actually heard. I think I was aware of their name because I remember thinking, "What the hell is the name? Is it Volvo or something?" And then after I actually heard that song, I really got into them a bit. So I should actually be thanking you for getting me onto them before this chat. And we've got one last song.
Last song is Sonic Youth Teenage Riot.
What is it about that song?
That is quintessential 90s, basically. Everything that I loved about growing up in the 90s is in that video and that song. It's noisy, it's guitar driven, the lyrics are ace, and the video just goes with it so well. And
just how you said it's so quintessentially 90s, this might be something I'll edit out if I'm wrong, but isn't that from Daydream Nation, which was late 80s?
Possibly.
Yeah, there we go.
I think the video came out in the 90s though.
Quite possibly. I just like being pedantic.
You've also got the 7-inch for that here, right?
Have I?
The Teenage Riot.
Oh, is this the Teenage Riot?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I'll check the copyright on that one. I don't know why I'm so hung up on this this question. I'm sounding so much more combative about it as well than I mean to. All right. Well, while Joe is putting away the Sonic Youth single, Niam, I should ask you your 5 songs. So what's your first song?
Poison Idea, Just to Get Away. Nihilistic. Give Up Everything and Just Fucking Fuck It All song. The drum beat to that song is like the most insane thing ever. The lyrics are like so powerful. Like I don't think you could actually listen to that song and be like not get hyped up. Like it's just one of those songs where you listen to and it's just like, fuck yeah, I'm gonna like go out and like call some shit. You know what I mean? So.
I mean, Poison Idea is such a... I don't want to say they're a fun band to listen to because there's nothing really particularly fun about them, but they're an enjoyable band to listen to, and I think that song is a really good example.
I think Just to Get Away is probably one of their more accessible tracks and one of the ones that just makes you want to fucking bang your head, you know? So, yeah, it's a good one.
And song number 2?
What do we got here? The Pogues, A Pair of Brown Eyes. Yeah, it's just a beautiful song, you know? So yeah, when you listen to that, I think if you don't feel anything, there's something wrong with you. You know, like it's like the poetry in that song and the imagery that he conjures up and just everything about that song is like I actually think it's like almost like it's a perfect song. You know, like
I'll admit that I'm not hugely well versed in the Pogues, but I am aware of a lot of their stuff and like I've listened to the vast majority of it, but. I seem to have a very vague memory that was the song that really stuck out to me as well. Yeah. Like, it's a good song from memory, but I couldn't hum it to you.
I've still got a vinyl copy of Rum Sodomy and the Lash, which is the record that's off. And when I was a kid, when I first moved out of home, we used to listen to that quite a bit, like me and my friends. So I think that's kind of part of it as well. But yeah, it's one of those songs that stuck with me since I was 18 till, you know, how old I am now. That I've just like...
Keeping the mystery alive.
I've just never... I've never sort of like been like, oh, I don't know that. Like it's every time I hear it, I'm like, I love the song. Yeah. Like from the moment I heard it, you know what I mean? And it's like one of those sing-alongs as well. Like if you've got a bunch of friends who know the song and you're pissed out of your mind, and if you sing that song, it's like just everyone's all in, you know? Like, yeah.
Well, I'll be sure not to put it on the radio when I'm driving you home tonight. Be very loud to drive home. What do we got next?
Song for the Dead, Queens of the Stone Age. Dave Grohl on drums. One of the best drum fills ever to introduce the song, I think, and it just builds so well. Just a killer track. Like, you can't go wrong, you know.
So weirdly, I was at the gym yesterday, and that song was playing as I was leaving the gym, and it actually made me want to stay at the gym.
Yeah.
It takes a lot to get me to stay at the gym, but I just thought that song.
Yeah.
I mean, well, that whole album actually is like, it's pretty hard, I think, to pick a good a highlight because right from the start.
I think it's one of those ones that will just get you in like a mood of just like fuck everything, kind of.
Well, I mean, you start off with the song Millionaire, and then you just go from there, and you think if that's where they're starting, the rest of it's going to be pretty damn good, and it doesn't let up.
Yeah, totally.
So what have we got next?
I Don't Want to Grow Up by the Ramones, Tom Waits cover, but I prefer their version because, I don't know, really cool video, really cool lyrics. It's just kind of about not turning into like a dude, an old man who shines his shoes and combs his hair every morning and just actually like still having your kind of like youthful shit going on. And it's off their last record, and it opened their last record. I think it just sort of just really stands for what they stood for, you know. It's just like that freedom of always having your youth inside you somewhere, you know. Like.
The first time I actually heard that song was I did not hear the Ramones version. I did not hear the Tom Waits version. I heard the Scarlett Johansson version.
What?
Now, this is a very controversial topic. That album that she released, it's an entire album of Tom Waits covers, like David Bowie on backing vocals. I love that album.
Yeah,
it's the main single she covered Falling Down, and I loved it. But I go back to it now and I think, maybe not as good, but it's still like...
I'm interested to hear that song because, the lyrics are great and I feel like it could be interesting. You know,
I mean, just the mere fact that Scarlett Johansson covers a bunch of Tom Waits songs, and that alone should draw you in.
This is an alternate universe you're opening me up to right now that I just have no idea about.
It is actually, I mean, I'm actually probably going to revisit it pretty soon, but I thought it was a really good album. And just the mere fact that people could say, what are you listening to? I'm like, Scarlett Johansson.
It's like, why? I'm just going to check. Notable mention, Amanda Palmer, Institutionalized by Suicidal Tendencies.
Yes.
I've been listening to that heaps lately, and to hear a woman just like go off on that kind of tangent is just fucking refreshing and awesome. But
yeah, actually, that is also an incredibly good example of a great cover as well. I feel like I'm being overly complimentary with everything, but you are making good choices here. So,
I haven't really chosen many women here, which is weird because I usually like to listen to music with a lot of women. But maybe we'll leave it at that. Institutionalized by Amanda Palmer.
That'll be your fifth song.
Yeah, all I want is a Pepsi, just one Pepsi,
and she wouldn't give it to me.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Niam Hegarty and Jo Gardiner, I want to say thank you very much for being generous with your time and for being part of the Trusty Chords podcast.
Thanks for having us.
Yay, Dental Plan. Go listen to them.
Thank you for listening to Trusty Chords. If you enjoyed this episode, and how could you not, then I'd really appreciate it if you could take some time to like, follow, share, and review this podcast on your preferred platform of choice. It's always a huge help in this podcast getting some visibility in the vast ocean of competing podcasts out there. If you're eager to follow along on social media, you can find me on Instagram and Facebook at Trusty Chords Podcast, all one word. I'm also on Twitter at Trusty Chords Pod, also all one word. There's also a blog for this podcast on my own website, which is tylerjenke.com. That's TYLERJENKE/Trusty Chords Podcast, all one word. That's where you can find and read through entries on each episode each week and lists of all the artists, albums, and 5 songs chosen by guests each week, along with the accompanying playlist too. You can also find a link to the Buy Me a Coffee platform where you can throw me a few dollars to keep this podcast running if you feel so inclined. As usual, thanks to everyone who continues to listen, message, or just support this podcast in any way. I'm forever grateful to hear from you all each week. Lastly, I need to thank Jo Gardiner, Niam Hegarty, and of course Paul Dwyer for spending time with me this week for the podcast. This is usually where I also thank whoever helped organise this chat for their hard work, but given this is a band I'm in, it didn't take too much organisation. But once again, thank you kindly for listening, and I hope to see you all again next week as I continue to celebrate music and those that create it.